Good morning, history students. We're going to continue from yesterday. So yesterday the last lesson, we discussed the upper and lower kingdoms becoming one. There were 3 periods of time, right? The Old Kingdom, the Middle Kingdom, and the New Kingdom. So today we are focusing on the Old Kingdom, okay? So we're in section 2 now. So it says, what's the connection? In section 1, you learned that Egyptian dynasties were divided into the Old Kingdom, Middle Kingdom, and New Kingdom. In section 2, you will learn about Egyptian leaders, religion, and way of life in the Old Kingdom. People we will meet today, we will meet King Khufu. Vocabulary, we have pharaoh, deity, embalming, mummy, and pyramid. And we're not going to get to all of those just today, okay? But that is where we're headed in this particular section. Okay. Sorry, guys. It's going a little slow today. Old Kingdom rulers. Egypt was ruled by all-powerful pharaohs. That word is pharaoh. Around 2600 BC, the period known as the Old Kingdom began in Egypt. The Old Kingdom lasted until about 2300 BC. During those years, Egypt grew and prospered. The Egyptians built cities and expanded trade, and their kings set up strong government. The Egyptian kings, or pharaohs, as they were called, lived with their families in grand palaces. In fact, the word pharaoh originally meant great house. The pharaoh was an all-powerful ruler who guided Egypt's every activity. His word was law, and it had to be obeyed without question. This is a very important paragraph, so I'm going to read it again. Please be paying attention. The Egyptian kings, or pharaohs as they were called, lived with their families in grand palaces. In fact, the word pharaoh originally meant great house. The pharaoh was an all-powerful ruler who guided Egypt's every activity. His word was law, and it had to be obeyed without question. Pharaohs appointed many officials to carry out their wishes. These officials saw to it that irrigation canals and grain storehouses were built and repaired. They made sure that crops were planted as the pharaohs directed. They also controlled trade and collected tax payments of grain from farmers. Why did Egyptians willingly serve the pharaoh? One reason was that they believed the unity of the kingdom depended on a strong leader. Another was that they considered the pharaoh to be the son of Re, the Egyptian sun god. As a result, his subjects paid him the greatest respect. Whenever he appeared in public, people played music on flutes and cymbals. Bystanders along the road had to bow down and smell the earth or touch their heads to the ground. I think that's kind of a really cool thing. Can you imagine if Mrs. Grant, if we had to do that, because she's like our ruler at the school, she's walking down the hall and we have to come, if she comes in, we play flutes and cymbals and then we have to all bow down and touch our noses to the ground when she came in. That's a lot of praise for somebody, right? The Egyptians thought that their pharaoh was a god on earth who controlled Egypt's welfare. He carried out certain rituals that were thought to benefit the kingdom. For example, he drove a sacred bull around Memphis, the capital city. The Egyptians believed this ceremony would keep the soil rich and ensure good crops. The pharaoh was also the first to cut ripe grain. Egyptians believed this would bring a good harvest. There's the Sphinx. It has head of a man and the body of a lion. Pretty cool. Egypt's religion. Main idea, the Egyptians believed in many gods and goddesses and in life after death for the pharaohs. Religion was deeply woven into Egyptian culture. Like the people of Mesopotamia, the ancient Egyptians worshipped many deities or gods and goddesses. The Egyptians believed these deities controlled the forces of nature and human activities. The main Egyptian god was the sun god Re. This was probably because of Egypt's hot, sunny climate and the importance of the sun for good harvests. Another major god was Hapi, who ruled the Nile River. The most important goddess was Isis. She represented the loyal wife and mother, and she ruled over the dead with her husband Osiris. Life after death. Unlike the Mesopotamians, who imagined a gloomy life after death, the Egyptians took a hopeful view. They believed that life in the next world would be even better than life on Earth. Following a long journey, the dead would reach a place of peace and plenty. One of the most important manuscripts written in ancient Egypt was the Book of the Dead. This was a collection of spells and prayers the Egyptians studied to obtain life after death. They believed that the god Osiris would meet newcomers at the entrance of the next world. If they had led good lives and knew the magic spells, Osiris would grant them life after death. For centuries, Egyptians believed that only the pharaohs and the elite few could enjoy the afterlife. They also believed that the pharaoh's spirit needed a body to make the journey to the afterlife. If the pharaoh's body decayed after death, his spirit would be forced to wander forever. It is vital that a pharaoh's spirit reach the next world. There, the pharaoh would continue to care for Egypt. To protect the pharaoh's body, the Egyptians developed a process called embalming. First, priests removed the body's organs. A special salt, natron, was then applied to the body, and it was stored for a number of days to dry. After this, the body was filled with spices and perfumes and stitched closed. Next, it was cleaned with oils and tightly wrapped with long strips of linen. The wrapped body was known as a mummy. It was put in several wooden coffins, one fitting inside the other. So it wasn't just in one coffin, it was in several. So it was put in one and then inside another and inside another one to protect it. The pharaoh was then ready for burial in a tomb. Egyptian medicine. In the course of embalming the dead, the Egyptians learned much about the human body. Egyptian doctors used herbs and drugs to treat different illnesses. They grew skilled at sewing up cuts and setting broken bones. Some doctors focused on treating particular parts of the body, becoming the first specialists in medicine. Egyptians also wrote the world's first medical books on scrolls of papyrus. So remember, I want you to focus on that vocabulary about Pharaoh because it's a very important role in ancient Egyptian, okay? So we're going to focus that, but we're going to stop here. So we'll read about the pyramids tomorrow, okay? So again, today is all about the Pharaoh, and make sure that you use the text to answer your questions again, okay? And you remember, you guys, if you have any questions, come to the Google Meets, ask me. Come to my office hours if you're too embarrassed to say it in front of the class, but pretty much I'm telling you, if you have that question, there's probably 5 or 6 other people who have the same question. But if you don't want to do that, then remember that you can come to my office hours from 8:30 to 9:30 in the morning, and you can talk to me one-on-one or maybe with one other person. Okay? So good luck on your work. Use the book, and I'll see you tomorrow.